feel like a holiday ham, dude.
I am holiday ham.
I'm a big slab of holiday meat.
Why do you say that?
Because
you ate a big holiday ham?
A mountain of grandma's cooking.
Oh, that's nice.
I brought a whole sampler in there. Also, I don't think you've ever tried pickled eggs in beet juice.
You're correct. I have not tried that, and
Actually,
I will not try that.
Kind of fire. I'm just going to say. It's an old family classic. And I think Polish, German? I'm not really sure. It comes from some real ancestral stock there, but they're the fucking tits. Like, you want to try it. They're very pink. They're very pretty.
I've had, like, pickled herring.
You've had pickled herring?
Yes.
Is it any good?
It's not bad.
Okay.
But I've also had, like, fermented shark from Iceland, so.
That shit's, like, fermented. I already find fish a little bit, like, fishy, if you will, and adding pickled on top of that just seems like a flavor disaster in my mouth.
You know what? It really wasn't as bad as you'd think.
All right, let's get this holiday ham show on the road. Welcome back to Weebology, everybody, all the students. Hope you're having a great holiday break. Too bad, class is still in fucking session. I'm your holiday ham, Professor Ricky.
Hey, I'm Professor Ethan.
I'm finding it. I'm doing pretty good lately on a diet kick, and I'm finding the holidays to be quite challenging in that regard.
You're glowing, honestly, the last couple days.
Thank you. I'm
I've
slimming
been meaning
down.
to tell you that in a couple days, but I'll just do it on air.
Hey, that's the Christmas gift I was looking for.
You're glowing.
Thank you. And it's really hard during the holidays because, like, I'll go over my family. We drink. We drink a good bit in my fam. And oh yeah, my grandma has this recipe called bourbon slush, where she, like, puts bourbon and, like, tea, honey, OJ, all bunch of this stuff, and it freezes as a slurry. The recipe, the content she'll tell us, the ratio is the secret. That's what she keeps. Too little of anything turns into a block of ice. Too much booze, it just stays booze.
Right.
So she manages down to the very precise ratio, so it literally is scoopable with an ice cream scoop right out of the freezer. It's pretty sick. But she'll take that one to the hole with her. Oh, well, hopefully she leaves it. She needs to keep the tradition alive.
I mean, that'd be insane to be like, guess what, bitches, you ain't getting it.
This grandma, she's got a sharp tongue and even a sharper attitude sometimes. So I could totally see her just giving us the double bird and just like, too bad, fuckers, figure it out yourself. We spend all of our lives in a lab, like all the siblings, like, no, that's not right. Fuck.
Well, you're already in a lab.
Oh my God.
For all of your life.
Maybe I should just start. Maybe I should just start now. We have all the amenities here.
You could probably figure it out. It would not be that difficult.
I think that's probably true. I think there's a part of me that wants to leave that bag.
Just a little bit of mystery.
Oh, easy. Because then it makes it special. Like the holidays, I get like bourbon. Not this year, though. I'm being a good boy. I had no slush this year.
Wow.
And I'm trying to, as much as I want it, I can't. But as much as it's being presented to me, there's parts of me that's just like, fuck, man, I really want it. I really want that slush, dude. That's the duality of man. But speaking of dualities.
Interesting.
Today, we're talking about a very interesting show that Ethan slid across my proverbial and almost literal desk. And it honestly is a show that, sometimes shows that we review or we kind of dive into try to do too many things at once. They try to wear too many hats and they kind of half-ass them all. And we start to kind of find ineffectivities, lack of ability to deliver on any of the promises. This show, weirdly, could have rocked either cap and full sent, but it wore both and did it well. And I think that this is one of those shows that, it had a lot more heart than we were expecting. And it's kind of a beautiful entry into a certain genre that we don't often get to see. So, it's coming, Ethan. I'm going to pitch it real slow. What are we talking about today?
This week, we are covering the 2023 Katakawa X Troika entry, Overtake.
Overtake, an original homegrown. I think Troika did like the story and everything. If you hadn't heard of Troika, I don't blame you. The only show that I have ever seen from the studio was Recreators, which is kind of that reverse isekai baddie girl central kind of show. And it was fine. It was fine. It was an okay show. It's kind of a turn your brain off, see how harem-y we can get with these battle chicks. But they came out of the gates swinging in 2023 with the show that is a sports anime, a slice of life. How would you, before we get into what the sport is, how would you even fucking classify it?
Yeah, so it was definitely a very interesting kind of look at it. I would say it's very much follows along the veins of like Netflix sports documentary type shows.
That's a nice way to put it.
Where you're following either like the underdogs or whatever teams, and you're hoping that they like succeed. You could think of it a little bit like what's the football one?
Hard Knocks.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
So Hard Knocks, I think, is one of the first that really did it well.
You're not just following their craft as the sport team, but you're following the individuals actually personally.
Right, but also like specific teams, right? And so our main characters all are kind of involved in one specific team.
Yes.
Like a let's just say underfunded team, which is really common actually in Formula 4.
And that's our niche sport here.
Not
Formula 1, as a lot of people are big fans of. Formula 4 being just like a lower tier, like same energy, same idea, pretty similar car designs, just not working with that much raw power, I guess, right?
Yeah, so there's different regulations per formula, I don't know, whatever you would call it, ranking.
Tier.
Yeah, tier.
Sure.
So Formula 1 is obviously the premier in the sport. Everybody knows about Formula 1, or at least has heard about it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Formula 2 is also similarly quite largely watched and funded.
Yep.
A lot of those teams are like Ferrari Academy teams, or like Red Bull Academy, or etc. Academy.
The training grounds to kind of. It's literally kind of the farm league.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it would be like, I would say the analogy would be AAA in baseball, for example.
I got you.
So AAA farm teams, you could easily have any of those players be pulled up to the major league at any point.
Yeah.
Football doesn't really have a good analogy here.
It's kind of college ball at that point.
Right, so it's NCAA, and then you're basically just a free agent after that. But for hockey, it would be AHL.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, so lots of AHL players get called up to the NHL all the time. They're a lot of times on two-way contracts.
Okay.
So you can be pulled up or sent down as much as the team wants, things like that. But Formula 4 is interesting because it is the lowest ranking formula, quote unquote, like series, still run by the FIA, which runs all of the formula. Quote, they call it formula because it's just like specific sets of rules.
Right, the parameters
like the rule
are
classes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They operate because and what's good about this show, and I want to talk about the sports anime part of this first, and why it's such a good one here. Is that they do a pretty good job of kind of explaining a lot of this stuff, and it's like we're called Formula 1 specifically because we all operate with the exact same set of parameters, and at that point, it's how you fine tune and work within that, like X horsepower, X body kit type, and certain measurements and stuff. They did a pretty good job. As someone, I've been very tangential with the Formula 1 in general and the Formula racing style experience, and I've actually managed to go to one Formula 1 race in my life. What a fucking amazing experience to go to that. Circuit of the Americas in Texas was so fun, amazing to watch all that. And this show does a very good job for those that are looking that have ever dabbled in the idea, maybe watched Drive to Survive on Netflix and had an inkling to get into it. This is one of those anime that do a really good job of getting the feet wet while wrapping it in a package that is much more digestible than maybe just sitting down with the boys at 6:30 in the morning watching qualies, right?
Right.
So,
so I would say this show does actually a really good job of following along the lines of like a Drive to Survive, where we're following that like underfunded team.
Yeah.
and you feel as the like audience, you're like, let's fucking go.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Like, Haruka, please, you gotta.
Dude, Haruka, you can fuck. Oh,
Or he like
every
makes
time.
a bad decision. You're like, no.
Or something happens to the car, which tends to happen. They show the full spectrum of what can and can't happen on and off the track during a given Formula season. Shit goes wrong with the car. The drivers, for whatever reason, just not up to snuff that day, mentally or physically. And with a sport of such precision, any little thing that's off can be the name of the game, but be it a podium or absolute last place or just out altogether. And the drivers know that, and they do a good job showing that here, the mentality of the drivers and what it takes to be, even at Formula 4, that it takes to be a winner. So I really enjoy that first tenet, underdog. You got to have it. That makes for any good sports anime. Who wants to watch, I guess some people do, the champ trying to defend being the champ, or an underdog just absolutely trying to skyrocket, like bumps and cracks in the road, but get to the top, right? I don't know. Any good sports story, you got to have an underdog. Just you got to do. I don't know. Something else, though, that as another tenet that they didn't do, but I actually really enjoyed here, in a lot of sports anime, there is that antagonistic force, that wall to climb, the absolute apex to surmount the underdog squad has to kind of eclipse to make their way to the top. While they did have that here, it was very much not antagonistic. They did a very good job of, for the most part, being extremely sportsmanlike. Do you notice that? All of the competing factions, you can call them competing teams, all really, at the end of the day, were all really sportsmanlike. And it's not that often you see, from Kuroko Basket to even Haikyuu, all the rival teams seem to be real fucking dicks, right? Like real top tier assholes to the underdogs. And I don't know.
Well, I think Kuroko Basket does it, or not Kuroko Basket, Haikyuu does it pretty well, where like they are antagonistic while they're playing, maybe. But then afterwards, they're like, respect, homeboy.
Yeah, right.
And then they kind of like get over it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what you got here. I think this has to be like a Japanese interpretation on how the teams would interact. Because they're certainly antagonist, which like basically their main rival, let's just say, is called Belsario. So it's like just a team that's funded through the fucking ass.
Yeah, no, this is like, it wasn't lost to me that they were sharing Ferrari's colors, and it was supposed to be kind of that vibe, like highly funded, well celebrated, great winning history. They just had everything going for them. And, you may have had some drivers have spats with the others or even internal strife. But at the end of the day, it was very much wrapped in a Japanese flavor of decorum. A lot of chivalry and a lot of sportsmanship was had. And I really enjoyed to the extent they did. Well, you said Haikyuu, yes. Antagonistic, real fucking bloodthirsty on the court. But off, they're all boys. They're all trying to like, look, you got promise, I want to help. Or like, take the lessons from the beatdown I just absolutely served you on a gold platter.
Look, you got a serve that can make a mama cry.
Yep, but still can't beat me, bitch. But in this show, in Overtake, you even go one step further, that there's a lot of camaraderie even within, like, there's some points in the race. We have your classic always winning prodigy child golden boy, who even when you're getting the underdog on his ass on the track, he's like, fucking respect midway through. Like, this is exactly what I wanted. I want this pressure. Like, right. I want it from you. This is great. So while they did still have that, the tenet number 2, the insurmountable wall that needs to be surmounted, they were very cordial about it. And it made for a really positive and cozy atmosphere amongst the combatants, amongst the racers. And
yeah, just that one scene that really kind of cheesed me off a bit. He was like, surmount me, daddy. It was so weird.
He literally was screaming it over the car engines.
But he was like, surmount me, daddy.
Surmount me, daddy.
Exactly. It was so weird.
He did it.
I don't know where that came from.
From his heart. It came from his heart. And from his brain and his penis. It came from all the places.
Yeah, so that is the A side, essentially, story plot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then there's this really, really, I think, intrinsically important to the story that they're trying to tell here. B-side, which is basically this photographer or previous photographer.
Yes.
He's got like a bit of a mental block going on because of something that's happened in his past. He is contracted to go basically take pictures of GT racing, which is another series. But while he's there doing that, he sees Formula 4 kind of doing their free practice and qualifying laps. And he's just absolutely enthralled from the start.
Yes, he has a friend, Enma, he actually did some contract work with a while ago. They became bros, and it turns out Enma is the owner of that Belserino team, and it kind of shows him a little bit of the ropes and like, yo, these cars are fucking wild, dude, and manages to kind of get a little peek into the life and kind of runs into our main character in that. So to name the players, our photographer, is Madoka Koya, and he's got a bit of a backstory. We'll get to that in a sec. And he comes across our main driver, the lone driver for the I had all these names fucking nailed down. Komaki Motors. His name is Asahina Haruka, and he, at first comes off, I wouldn't even say aloof, a little bit spiky, a little bit prickly to our boy, and he watches the race. He watches him fail due to a malfunction and sees him emotional, crying in his garage, and snaps a picture. This is a big deal because this photographer has not been able to take photos of individual people, individual subjects for nearly a decade. Over a decade at this point, even. So this is a big moment for him. He did it almost on instinct, and this kind of begins the journey of both the main driver and our photographer character. I want to, before we get into kind of that B-side, this is another tenet of what I think makes a great sports anime. If you've ever seen How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift, Hibiki gets into weightlifting. She knows nothing about it, learns the ropes of weightlifting. You talk about Haikyuu, you have the crowd kind of talking about the intricacies of volleyball. Even in Dr. Stone, a show that teaches science along the way, the villagers in that show, like Chrome, know nothing about modern science, and Senku kind of explains it to him. A surrogate to naturally inject stuff about the sport, stuff about the thing that the show is wrapped around that is real, be it science, be it sports, is paramount. And how well a show can do this, how naturally it can tie into the story, can make for a really engaging entry into that hobby, that niche, that thing. This show does it, I think, in a very brilliant way. Like, he has, our main character, Koya, he has this wild urge to be part of this Formula 4 world, but he frequently is blocked by his inability or is just inexperience to know anything about the sport. And everyone around him is like, oh, yeah, if you're going to be here, you might as well teach you. And then, boom, that's a great entry point for the audience to resonate with the character and learn with him. It makes info dumping great. It makes exposition about a real thing great. This show, check, absolute check.
Yeah, I think a character like that comes into a basically unknown field to himself and just is like so like avid for it or like rambunctious to learn.
Yeah.
I think is a really interesting way of capturing a little bit of real life where like when people do that in real life, you want to talk about your like the thing that you're into, right?
Right, yeah.
And you want to explain to them. For example, like I run a good bit. If somebody is like, I want to get into running, that is a hype thing to talk about. Or let's just say podcasting. If somebody,
sure.
Or anime. If someone's like, I want to get into anime, that like is a green light to just litter fucking rip.
Yeah, right.
Or if they're like, dude, I just saw this fucking insane anime called Dragon Ball Z. You're like, let's go, boys.
So you clasp the hands together, you fire up the wrinkles, and
you
let
say,
it
my
rip.
brother in Christ, tell me everything.
Tell me everything, and I'll tell you even more.
And I'll tell you everything.
So yeah, to have someone be avid about it, and in the shows that I mentioned, they all have a very concrete reason why they're passionate about learning about these things. Chrome fancies himself a scientist of sorts in a pretty like a prehistoric world, essentially. Hibiki and How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift is trying to lose weight. and actively trying to go to the gym. And so she's absolutely avid about all things resistance training. And now you have Koya, who is avid about learning about this sport so he can help drive this underfunded team, Komaki Motors, to a podium spot so he can capture, Haruka on that podium because he just was enamored by the kid's spirit, by his drive to win. And that right there felt so natural and so in line with the character as we learn more about him. It's completely in line with why he's so feverish, right? And in his character as well, too. It is very well known that Koya is a guy that just like, when you give him the inch, he absolutely fucking runs the mile and then some, right? He doesn't even think. He's just like, let's go. Let's rip it. I don't even, no more words out of your mouth. We're going to do the thing.
Right. Yeah, I have some friends like that. They're like hard to keep up with in a lot of cases because they're just like so go.
I can be like this in some ways. When I pick up a new hobby and I'm trying to be better about it, I will full send so hard into it that I'll burn myself out before I really like. It happens, and it
certainly does.
I get better at it, but yeah, sometimes I get so excited about a thing that I'm just like, I'm going to buy and get all the things, and 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh right, I have to like, I don't know, invest. Time, effort, brain power. Ew, no.
I have to stop watching YouTube for like 5 minutes.
Oh, come on. I only watch YouTube for like 9 hours a day. We're still in single digit.
I probably listen to audiobooks over 15 hours a day.
Yeah, I was going to say 9 might be a light day for me, actually. Fuck.
Yeah, so anyway, this A and B plot kind of are intertwined in a lot of ways. Because it seems like, for whatever reason, Haruka and his like zest for this sport that he's, trying his ass off seems to be this interesting trigger for our main character, Kyoya, where all of a sudden he's able to take pictures of people again. And it always seems to be related to something that Haruka is doing. And so it's sort of this interesting situation where it seems like a Big Brother kind of scenario where so Haruka's backstory is essentially he's orphaned. And he is basically being taken care of by his best friend's dad, who was best friends with his dad.
Yeah, right.
Right? A little bit contrived there, but so he's being taken care of by his best friend. His dad's best friend. God.
Yeah. Yes.
And his dad was a Formula driver of some sort. They didn't really say whether he was 4 or above.
Yeah. Right. Just something like
that.
And
he passed away in a fiery crash. And so there's a sort of this idea of like, I want to be able to, live up to my dad's legacy. I want to find my own legacy.
I think it's more this second one, which I think actually makes it a more complex, potent, character-driven reason to be in the sport. Haruka is like, he was told that half of the reason why he does it is because of his dad's like accolades in the sport. But we find out later the other half when he was asked, have you ever been on the podium? And he said, yes, once when my dad took me up there when he won a race. I want to know what it feels like to be on there with my own skill. And I found that very compelling because that's a very common trope where it's like, oh, I was shown this world because of my father. Someone close to me brought me to what that felt like, but I want to feel it because I got there on my own. And it's more like he's not chasing after honoring his dad's legacy. He wants to make his own because he got a taste of it from his father's like getting there in the first place.
Right.
Like that. I like that little touch. It wasn't just this typical, my dad did it. I'll do it for you, Dad. No. His dad showed him a little preview. He wants the main fucking show. He wants to be the first place. And I like that little, not switch up, but just kind of fleshing out of that idea. So that was nice to see that. And boy, howdy, does he try his ass off. Like he's a driven man.
I think what's also really good about this show is they show that like basically, I'm going to refer to both of these guys as our main characters, Kyoya and Haruka.
That's cool who they are, yeah.
So the driver main character is very gifted at driving.
Yeah.
He's just being held back by essentially the lack of resources that his team has. Not for like a lack of trying from any of his team members. So his best friend and his best friend's dad are essentially running the team to help him try to like live his dream, essentially.
By the way, love both these characters.
Absolute
amazing.
beasts.
Yes. So you have Kota, who is just kind of like a shortened nickname for him, but he's the son of the owner, so it's Kota Komaki, and he's kind of the mechanic, and it's almost like I would call him a good mechanic, but he's great because he's been on a team with Haruka so long that he just knows he can just adapt to his driving. Like if you think he dropped him in another team's mechanic team, I think he would be middling. But because him, much like the car that Haruka drives, he's so tuned to the driver that he knows exactly the needs of Haruka, which I kind of liked.
I think the vibe I was getting from him is he is maybe natural, similar to Haruka, and that he is naturally able to see what he needs to change in the car to make Haruka faster, unrelated to necessarily Haruka. It just seems like he has he's just in tune with the idea of like, I'm a race mechanic. And there was a scene later on where they're like talking about how hot the circuit is.
I was just gonna say this,
and
yeah.
And he's like, "So how hot is the circuit?" And he goes, "On a scale of 1 to 3, I'd say pretty damn hot."
I love that.
And then he's like, "I guess Belisario would have been able to tell you like the exact temperature, but I know exactly what to do to help you succeed or whatever." So
you make a great point. He probably is naturally gifted because in a lot of these shows, the ones that are naturally gifted, they commonly will have them be unable to precisely explain. So I need you to vroom and then noom. You mean zoom? Then no, not zoom. Vroom then noom.
That was a
fucking verbatim
conversation that they had.
So I think you're right. Kota is just that good of a mechanic, but he's just like it's pure natural instinct. Vroom then noom. That's how I'm gonna be saying that going to work tomorrow. Like, all right. We got 10 minutes to work. I can make it 8 if I vroom and then wait for it. So you have him and his father, the owner of the team. I'm just gonna call Komaki. I don't fully remember his first name. Big Tubbs, Big King Tubbs. I'm gonna call him King Tubbs. He's honestly such a quality fucking dude. And there is a scene later.
Top tier father in every regard.
There's a scene later where he gets an offer from the Big Daddy team, Belsarino. I'm going to keep saying Belsarino? Help me.
Just change it every time.
So Ballerina. Basically.
I think that's the way we're going to have to deal with our naming issues from now on is we'll have to just change them every single time we speak.
Don't give the students the flashbacks from the Gygax incident.
Yeah, I mean...
Gary Gognac, so bad. But Big King Tubbs himself, Big Tubbs Komaki, he basically tells Haruka when he got an offer from the top team to go drive for them that go do it. And I was like, whoa, like that's a moment where like that could have been a really nice kind of like couple episode arc undertaking. Haruka realizes, oh man, with all the money and the resources, it still doesn't feel like home, or they could have done all of that. While that did still sort of happen, but for different, I think, better reasons, having him like be almost a father, a caregiver first, and a team owner second was so, it just added to this positive vibe that this show gives off. So high marks there for like actual genuine good character writing.
Well, I think it's a little bit even more nuanced than maybe it seems on the surface, because like Komaki knows that this is really like they are trying really hard, but it is a hobby at the end of the day for them. Yeah, like they have like other jobs they have to do. They have all this other stuff that they're going to like have to do. They have to buy shit secondhand. They have to like really, really work on tire management.
Yeah.
Like it's so expensive to buy tires that they typically will do all the free practice, qualification, and the race on the same set of tires, which is absolutely unheard of. And basically he does seem to be like father first in this scenario. There's this race in the rain at Suzuka, which is extremely common if you watch the Formula One series.
To the point where it
always rains in Suzuka.
Yeah, and they do a good job of showing like, oh shit, it's raining. What are other teams doing? What is the strategy here when you have rain? Because the race don't stop, dude.
Right, but what I was referencing was they're all concerned for Haruka and his decision essentially to go for slicks in basically full wet conditions. He believed that like, oh, it's going to get dry and then, I'll zoom away, which does happen. I think what's really interesting here is like Formula 4 in these races, they said are only 20 minutes long. So that's not even like, I would say that's a fourth of the full Formula 1 as far as laps go.
Yeah, I think they said 11 laps.
Which is why like a decision like that is such a big deal versus like a full 60 lap circuit. There's plenty of time to like pit, switch out for inters or switch out for full wet tires and then come back onto the course and do that a couple times per race.
Right.
But the decision before the race was so impactful. But the dad character was like, he was going to let him make his decision, but you could tell because his hand was like shaking and stuff like that at different times.
After he made the decision to cool it, kind of go back, like we're gonna let this race go. It's cool. Yeah, his hand went on his shoulder and it was quaking for sure.
And like this show, I think does that so well. It's the little hand movements that people wouldn't maybe notice typically, or like our other main character is a photographer, so his like finger will be like shaking about to take a picture, and I just love the attention to detail and the attention to detail that is required in this story from all involved. There's another character who goes through like a really traumatic big wreck, and he's constantly after that trying to like lift too much weight or like get back into the car as fast as he possibly can. And there's a lot of situations where he'll do his bicep curl with too much weight, and then you'll like see his arm like spaz out, or he'll be talking to the girl and he'd be like, I guess maybe I just won't get past Formula 4 or something. But you can like see
his hand quaking,
he's like quaking and like really tense. And I just think they did an incredible job of showing the tension, I think the overwhelming desire that these people have to like enjoy their sport, but also to win and to move on to the next league. I think there's another character. He's like perpetually bridesmaid, essentially. Like he's a runner-up for most of the season.
Yeah, he's Tokumaru, and he's kind of part tsundere, but also very much like he's wrestling very complexly. It's not one note, but he like wrestles with the idea of being like second fiddle all the time. But it's his particular journey is so fun too, because so maybe we should back up, give a little bit of lay of the land, is that Satsuki, the kind of golden pretty boy of the Belsariso team, that he has the second fiddle, and a lot of Formula One teams will have like that 1-2 punch. Like they'll have their driver out in front, second driver support. And it's just like whoever it's kind of, they race for that every so often to see who's faster. And Tokumaru is kind of that second fiddle. So at first he was like wrestling and kind of like gunning to try to be first car. But then halfway through the season, the wreck that Ethan mentioned happens to Satsuki, our pretty boy, and he's the one who's hospitalized, leaving Tokumaru to take the mantle, which in and of itself had its own mental hurdles to overcome. So he wanted something so bad, and when he finally got it, he didn't really fully, because he's never really been there, fully understand what it meant to be out in front. You're not chasing, you don't have the luxury of chasing, you're being chased all the time.
Yeah, I think it really did a great job showing the different pressures you feel throughout a race.
Yeah,
For example, our main character, Haruka, is starting basically 20th in the first couple episodes and having to pass like all these cars and get into like contention within 11 laps is extremely difficult. And so like basically through the arc of the season, you see him going from like a 11th place finisher all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
In like specific races and stuff like that. And I think this show, and you said it, has so much soul, so much heart. It really is difficult to put into words, but it's also, I think I struggle with motorsports animes a lot of times because it's just like it's not as cool as Fast and Furious.
One, you have a good point. When it comes to like one of the things that anime we've always said on this show is you're watching things that you can't really put in real life in a really good way. Motorsports, however, from a formal situation like F1 or GT or anything like that, or something more like a Fast and Furious, Baby Driver, even parts of John Wick, like
that's a good point.
You get all of what cars can do and more. Fuck, Fast and Furious 9 and 10 are like, they're launching cars into fucking space and fucking launching them out of the sky and driving down dams and shit.
We're in orbit.
Yeah, right, into orbit. You're getting all of the top tier craziness that you can get out of motorized, insanity, right? So for a show to tackle that, it has to either A, go above and beyond like a red line, or it has to come way down and really have a lot of that soul and relatability like Overtake. And I think they really did a good job showing that in a way that like didn't make the motorsport feel devalued. Like it's still those races, it had me hype, dude. Like had me hype as fuck at some points, like really rooting for our boy. So to your point, yeah, there is a bit of a problem with motorsports in anime because I think they never really commit to one of those extremes because the whole middle is covered by live action content. It just is.
Right.
Be it real or fiction. I don't know.
Well, like even Initial D is like so like wow realistic, I guess. It's so like over dramatized almost that it's like this doesn't make sense anymore.
Just go watch Tokyo Drift.
Right? I would prefer to watch Tokyo Drift.
Right. So either get like
Drift, Fast and Furious.
Drift.
And that is a Teriyaki Boys original.
Classic even.
So I do want to like start getting into a little bit like what exactly happened to our guy Kyoya.
What made him fear the shudder at the shutter, if you will. And it's honestly like a really human thing. Like
super hard hitting, and I was not expecting
I did not expect them, and the way they depicted it, the way that he has his arc to overcome this what can only be described as PTSD is really potent, and it gave a lot of respect to the point where the show even had disclaimers about this episode. Various do. This episode depicts victims and disasters of earthquakes. Viewer discretion is advised. One, very much respect that. It's a big common natural phenomenon that does happen a lot in Japan's history. So it is something that actually does affect a lot of people in a very devastating way. But our boy Koya is out in a village 12 years ago from the time of this show he used to be a photojournalist. He actually used to go and, cover people, stories and stuff like that. He was out in a small village where a friend of his was kind of a local leader of sorts. And while out there, the town was struck by a devastating earthquake and a subsequent tsunami therein. And he actually was feverishly attempting to run down. There's still people down there. We need to go save them. And everyone's like, no, dude, do you see that tsunami? Like, you're going to be dead too. And he's using his viewfinder and his camera to kind of scope out people. And he sees this girl, her name being Momo, someone who he happily captured just the night prior, or even like just a little bit ago. And he accidentally snaps a picture of her final moments before the tsunami took her, and it destroyed him. as any normal human with a pulse probably would, to the point where he felt so compelled to stay there for 2 unannounced months to help with the rebuild efforts, destroying his own marriage in the fucking process. And when he did come back, he felt compelled, I think, to publish the picture. And he got a lot of fucking heat for that, to the point it was almost career destroying. So it kind of really threw his entire life in a loop, and experiencing something like that, you can really understand how, you know.
Yeah, so he was there taking pictures of like daily life in this city, and then he also stayed and took pictures after the fact as well.
Yeah.
And so really what I think would be a really interesting thought piece, essentially, like if you thought about real life, I would have thought that this would be looked on as like very artistic.
I can
seeing like a before of like this incredibly, you know, picturesque, slow town. You know, that he had like he had pictures of, you know, just a guy carrying wood to his work site, or like
people at the local bar,
right?
Like
people
just
at the local bar,
just
shit like
hanging
that,
out, yeah.
Or you know, a man and his granddaughter, and you know, stuff like that, just like out in the wild. And then like post tsunami, like reconstruction effort pictures, devastation, and then that accidental picture where he got like what I would consider like distilled fear. Like my life is over, please save me kind of look in this girl's eyes. And it was an accident that he got the photo, but he felt compelled to tell her story as best as he could with what he had. And basically there was a lot of pushback once this photo was published, and like all the, you know, fucking dumbass internet trolls were like, oh, if you had time to take the picture, you could have gone and saved her.
One, absolutely go sit on a bag of cactuses. Like if you
but
have
also
that, yeah,
like,
right. But here's the thing, like he actually outlined it very well too, is that the problem, and sometimes even the beauty of a photograph, is its ability to capture the most infinitesimally small slice of the truth. You don't have context for the picture before or after, and nor do you have the context of the photographer that did the taking. You only get that. But he said, even so, I captured a memory, and she exists in not his eyes, but the mind's eye of the community, because he did that act. Unpublished, no one would know. Like, or she would have disappeared into the ether. Like he said, I'm glad I captured her because I have proof that she lived. And I'm like, that again, it's a very, very weirdly, again, from a show I never expected, quite a nuanced take of both the good and the potential, not bad, but the negativity that can come from photography. Very powerful.
Right.
Very powerful.
I think like when I think of things like this, it's almost like, you know, there was a lot of like videos and camera footage of like the Twin Towers falling, 9/11, people like essentially jumping out the window of the tower, like 60 stories up, so that they wouldn't like die in a different way.
I think of Tiananmen Square, like stuff like that. I mean, and again, to your point, the way you described it earlier was actually could have been a somberly beautiful display of one side of a museum hall of just all the people that day that he took pictures of, just living their lives, the photo of the girl, and then all of the aftermath, and how and basically give a timestamp for each of them, showing how quick natural disasters can devastate a community. Again, sad, somber, but in a weird way, kind of artistically beautiful, in that it's showing the raw power that, like, you know, the message he wants to sell, the natural disasters can uproot an entire community within a blink of an eye, literally. So I, again, taken with a lot of maturity and nuance, that can be seen as somberly beautiful, somber and eye-opening. But another way, in the way that it affected him, no one gave a fuck about him, the context. They saw a picture, they had their opinion, destroyed him, and it had real effects of him in the show. Like, he got a sponsor because of a photo he took. They found out who he was because he was operating under a different name, and then they dropped their contract with the team because they didn't give a shit about the context. They just gave a shit that had been bad for the brand.
Yeah. I think, he didn't maybe change his name enough.
He did not change his name enough.
That would be my number one, I guess, issue with this.
I would say go full hog, really change it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like just put a different like full on pen name for your photography. It just didn't seem like
just an LLC, bud. Like,
yeah, it
come
didn't
on.
seem like all that reasonable there that he's like, oops, I guess I should have told you that.
Yeah, right.
The other thing is I am surprised that he was so vilified for the photo, because if he was close enough to save her, he would also be dead. And it seems like that would be a really easy logic to understand. But like even worse than that, like her entire family, I guess, was mad at him. Because there is this incredible episode later on where they finally get to the root of this problem he's had. He basically vanishes midway after this sponsor drops, and he feels like very personally responsible for that. And also, the girl who dies in the photo, or dies right after the photo, her grandfather is like ill now, and he's like basically on his death's door, and he's gone up to this place again so that he can see him one more time before he goes. And he's waiting like each day in this town for the family to finally like allow him in to see the grandfather, basically his friend that had brought him up there originally for all the photos. And they finally let him in there, and his friend is like, "Hey, Mr. Cameraman," or whatever. He's like, photographer, and
dude.
he's like, "Please, get my phone really quick." So he opens the phone, and it's the picture that he took a selfie with Momo and the grandfather the night before this terrible, terrible event. And just like how
they were happy.
They were so happy. And he goes like, "Hey man," like basically he also Kyoyo had asked him if he would think like publishing the photo would be okay in the aftermath, and he agreed. So it was basically like him and photographer against the rest of the entire family and internet. And so he felt the old man felt like responsible a little bit for bringing him into this like this world of like internet troll fuckery and like being vilified by this family, like the rest of the family. But he says, "Look, I really want you to keep taking photographs and capturing these moments."
Right.
And it was seriously so moving. I was literally crying.
Yeah, it got tears out of me, and I mean,
especially the juxtaposition of how absolutely unabashedly happy she looked in the photo with her grandfather and Kyoya, and then how like just utterly terrified she looked in the tsunami photo. And like a juxtaposition like that would have been literally incredible for like a for like you're saying, like a museum situation. I went to the 9/11 museum in New York City.
I've been in the past year or so.
I mean, it is just like very, very heavy. It reminds me a lot of the like Holocaust Museum in DC as well.
And here's the funniest thing about that is like no one's shitting on the captures of, you know, the pictures from the Holocaust or the pictures from 9/11, because it's important for the somber nature of it, for the eye-opening nature of it. Capturing it, in my mind, is, if anything, a neutral act. It is what is done thereafter or how it affects others that it's really kind of the purpose and the context for that capture. And it's important those things are, you know, documented. They need to be, to the point where, like, again, and the context here is he didn't even mean to take that fucking picture. So I mean, yeah, but what actually struck me about that's beautiful about the juxtaposition is, as the same way that one picture socially kind of scarred him, the memory, that single instantaneous moment of her eyes being just screaming "help me" and so much fear is burned into his head and can cause so much trauma. And yet a single photo can let it all melt away. It really showed the power of photography, that a single moment can cause 12 years of a man's life to be in disarray. But the same amount of photos, just one photo, can wash that all away, which is very cool to me. And especially kind of broadening back out to like the larger show, it wasn't lost on me how much of a beautiful pairing it is for photography and Formula Sports, both activities that require instantaneous amounts of time, right? Formula is operating under tens and hundreds of seconds between first and second, podium or not. And photography operating under minuscule amounts of time to get that perfect shot. Like, it's all the show. They managed to take the lens of two acts that require absolute precision to tell tales about two characters' kind of long, lingering traumas that they carry with them. And it's really kind of a beautiful framing of, how to overcome past traumas, where those past traumas were literally mere moments, but they're lasting effects. And it takes only just another mere moment for both of them to let that kind of all melt away. And they help each other do that, which is kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like their, I guess, companionship throughout the show is what I think really helps both of them heal. And you see it obviously through Kyoya being able to first take pictures of him.
Yes.
And I think when you also just juxtapose the photo of Haruka crying because he lost, but he tried really, really hard, and the photo of the girl crying in the tsunami because she's just like fucked.
Yeah, right.
It's very interesting to be able to think about it as like from like an artistic standpoint. Like, the act is the same, but the reasons are so different, and that's what makes photographs so interesting.
Right.
And like, I guess really human emotion so interesting is like you can cry for a variety of reasons.
Right. And if you notice, if you want to do a parallel there and kind of how, not even context, but the perception of such an art form like photography is taken, he was put on blast so heavily for a moment of captured of a person crying because of A, without any context, and a person crying because of B landed the team a sponsorship, him notoriety, all these good windfall things for the team completely happened. Same act, similar emotion, but it's just the people that gravitated toward those photos took them in completely different ways. They could have been like, that guy was fucking vulnerable, and like, how dare you take a picture without his permission? And with the little girl, it could have been, what a somber, eye-opening, take on natural disasters. It could have been so artistic. That easily could have been swapped.
Right.
But again, it's the context is disregarded, and the public gravitates towards whatever the fuck the hive mind thinks. And I find that a very interesting kind of take in a 2023 world,
I think it's very interesting, though, in the 2023 world to think that, photographers are on blast or journalists are on blast. They can say like really horrific fucking shit and they get like no hate ever.
Yeah, right. I mean,
They're like a protected class. It feels a little bit ridiculous that he would be put on blast for a photo like that. Like, no, of course, people on X would be eating his shit for lunch.
Yeah, right.
But I think the overarching like feeling would be like, this isn't like a fucking attack on the little girl.
No, right. Exactly. It's like the people, but nowadays in 2023, people do search out context. The places I tend to be online, they typically are like, all right, what's the actual story here? And I think people of our age, millennials, I would say, and Gen Z and the rest, I think would do a little due diligence. Like, all right, what's the fucking story here? It only takes a Google, right?
I wonder if he had been or had access to the photo of him with the little girl right before, whether that would have changed the way that it was received.
I think 100% it would. Yeah. I wonder. He basically like this, I was here, this natural disaster happened, this beautiful little girl, here's but the thing is, like, wait a minute, that almost made it. Now I'm talking myself and thinking that could have made things way worse. Like, you knew her and you saw her and you did nothing. And I'm like, whoa, like, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't know, but it's there's a lot of really tight visual and narrative parallels here to, Formula 4 technically, but Formula Sports, and, photography and that nature, and just the way that they play everything into each other. It was a shockingly tight package. Like, I almost feel as if that this show went completely disregarded in terms. Again, we had a very hype year of anime, and a lot of things finished up and popped off and hit the scene. It wouldn't surprise me that a studio like Troika had an original homegrown that had no fan base built in like an anime would with like a manga or a light novel. And, I can see this one getting a little overlooked and absolutely should not be overlooked.
Yeah, this deserves your attention. I feel this deserves like some views. I think this was one of the better looking anime of the year.
Genuinely floored by the level of detail in the character Sakuga alone. I mean, it felt frame by frame with love.
The art was just unbelievable.
The CGI actually was completely augmentative. I think for motorsports, yeah, CGI was a great choice for those cars. Would it be great to have it, 2D animated at that level that we saw all the other character stuff? Sure. But if the CGI was there to put all the attention into the character stuff, great fucking choice. Great. I loved it.
Yeah, I also think anime in general and a lot of studios focus on the eyes a lot. And that was a trope that was employed here, I think, gorgeously. Specifically from the idea of like through the lens of a photograph.
Yeah, right. And you know what's funny too? This studio has a very interesting signature about how they shade certain things like under the lip and like the bridge of the nose to the point where one of our characters, Alice, she's kind of head over heels for that Sakuzi kind of guy. And when she went to go visit him in the hospital, because she was like pushed into it by Koita, and the little shade of the bridge of her nose was in the shape of a broken heart.
Yeah, I saw
when
that.
She saw all the fangirls praising over Satsuki, and she's like, what the fuck am I looking at? Why the fuck did I come here? That was actually kind of a beautiful thing too. Like, she came and really kind of all the fangirls just like fawning over him, but she came and like looked up like the guy that she looks up to that he heard about and used it to kind of encourage him to get back in the game the best he could. All of the relationships that are built in this show, be it friendships, be it what looks like maybe semi-romance, whatever, not only wasn't it taken to any weird extremes, no harem-y extremes, it all felt so fucking real. So genuine. There wasn't like, oh my God, I'm like, a girl being head over heels for like essentially a pop star or a sports star. Totally believable. But she gets pushed in and then sees him as an actual person when he's a little bit broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he becomes more human and they interact in a more meaningful way. And I'm like, that's real. That's a real thing that happens. I love that.
The only thing that I think could be looked at as a little weird is I don't believe typically Formula 4 people are like 19 years old.
I was actually going to ask you about that. That was a blind spot.
Typically much younger.
Oh, younger.
I mean, if you're not in Formula 2 by 18, you're not making it to Formula 1.
Okay. And I wonder because I think the only person that we heard was Tokumaru said he was 19. I think and Satsuki actually came to Alice, Haruka and Koda's school. So they could have been even younger. And I presume that Haruka was actually kind of young.
Yeah, so in that case, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Like if he's like 16 or something like that, I guess it's possible.
Okay.
But there was a lot of, I think, they spent a lot of time on Tokumaru and even Sasuke speaking about like, I need to progress quickly here. And unless you know that, you've got to keep moving or else you're like, you have no fucking shot. I just wanted to kind of give more information to people who are listening and don't know anything about the Formula, series.
I'm one of those people.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you should be moving up as fast as you can because really, like, people getting into Formula 1 for their debut at 21 is pretty old.
That's old?
Yeah, it's like
shit.
NHL for a long time. It was like 18 was about the time that you start playing, or like 18, 19 if you're really, really good. But if you're like 23, 24, like you're kind of an old rookie.
Wow.
And I think that's the case for NFL and all these other sports as well.
That is true. I know like college people like juniors and even some sophomores will just like I don't know about sophomore, maybe it's a little young, but like, 2021, like the best of college football are like disregarding bowl games because they're committing themselves to the draft at that point. So you make a good point. That's a fair shake.
I just wanted to provide context because that was a little like of an underpinning plot. Is everyone is like to move on, I need to start succeeding now, and I think it added more tension to the show. If you didn't know about this, it would be harder to understand why it matters so much.
Yeah.
Also,
right.
Like the way that you win like a Formula One season is you score points throughout the season. So you need good placings throughout the entire season. And then there's also what's called a constructors championship. So a team could win still if both their drivers did like 4 and 5.
Okay.
5th in the drivers championship. Their team might still win if like those combined points are more than the other team's combined points.
I didn't realize that there was like a winning. I knew there was like winning individuals. I didn't know there was like, this team won this year.
Right. And so that's why like finishing 1-2 is really important for teams.
Because that's absolute sweeping points.
Right.
Yeah.
You have as many points as you possibly can have for your constructors championship. In Formula One, it matters a lot because at the end of the season, you get paid out from the FIA based on your constructors championship standings.
Ooh.
And between the top and bottom is like billions of dollars difference.
Yeah. And, as we wrap up here, they do the one thing about Formula Sports that needs to be said. It is one fucking expensive enterprise. Like, good Lord, it smells of money. Even when I went to the Circuit of the Americas years ago, you could smell the money in the air, baby. There's so much cash. Good Lord. And like, they do a good job in the show. Like we've said kind of up top, right? This team being underdog, you can have the most talented fucking driver of all time. But if the equipment and the resources are just not up to snuff, then you can only go so far. And I think that's why I think the very end of this anime is so good, because it shows like not just the driver's got his headspace locked in, he's dialed way the fuck up. You have, people came together and like gave them just enough money to have all the tire room, like headroom in the world to maneuver on. You had everything replaced and everything is like tip top. Up to that point, there's the moment where they lose that beverage sponsorship. Like you kind of see that if you'd have like a trajectory of the performance of the Kamaki group, it's just like uptrends, downtrends back to where they started, and then an uptrend again. So, the car, the equipment, the mechanics, resources is as much of a pivotal element of the sport as the technique of the driver, which makes it a very unique and fucking pricey sport,
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I believe, one of the most expensive motorsports possible. And one, I would say, detractor of this show would be like there was a scene where one of their front wings got fucked up, and he stays out to basically try to slingshot his teammate around him. Your wing is fucked. You are dropping like so much time to everybody behind you that you wouldn't even be close to a position to like slingshot anybody. Or there was the scenes where in the full wet conditions, they were driving on slick tires. There would be no traction. They would be off the road in like milliseconds. Like there's just a few things that like technically I don't think are realistic at all. And there was like a surprising lack of really accidents in Formula 4. Like these drivers suck and their cars suck. They should be wrecking.
Yeah, fair. I never seen a Formula 4 race in real life.
I mean, suck relative to Formula 1.
Sure, that was certainly wood track.
But I mean, think about Formula 1 races. People wreck multiple per race.
Oh yeah,
and they're the best in the world.
Yeah, and I think that again the focus they this could have been a show that could have sucked all of the drama, everything they could possibly have wanted out of the sport itself. But they have chosen not to do that. And I think it was for the betterment of the story they wanted to tell. If you were, and it showed me that if someone else wanted to tackle a Formula One anime, there is real legs here. You really could make a real Ford versus Ferrari kind of situation. Two combatants rush, even, I think, is like the movie that has the two very famous Formula One racers. Historical, you could fucking retell that in an anime. I don't know the names. You probably know the names that I don't.
Well, what's funny is they were talking about them this whole show.
Is it Nick Lowry and Nick,
nope.
Well, help me then.
James Hunt and Nicky Lauda.
Nicky Lauda, that's his name. Okay.
Nick Lowry.
Nick Lowry. You know him, the third guy, the third
James
wheel.
Hin.
I just happy to be here, guys. Nick Lowry.
No, but I just think that. I think what would have been really interesting is imagine if they had done Talladega Nights anime before it had come out. I think that would have ripped like a motherfucker.
It would have been so fucking awesome. Genuinely, it still could be.
Yeah, I mean.
So, again, like any other sport anime, the sport itself provides ample drama. If anything, you're almost paring away all of the full context of the drama to make a really tight narrative. You could do that with Formula One with your eyes gouged out and all of your limbs tied behind your back, and you could still make it work. Like,
oh my.
Oh yeah, it's violent because it's a violent fucking sport. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of like the Formula One drivers. I may not know much, but I know that they can be kind of like literal up their own asses level of narcissistic, and
they're all diva bitches.
Absolute
right? Diva roaches. I want to say, like, as a sports show, I do really like the comparison to like a Haikyuu. There's of course the sport is really important in both of these shows, but it's really like the people involved that are the main characters, the main like driving forces.
I see what you did there. That's good. Yeah.
And also like that sting of defeat that you see in each of these episodes where like somebody's crying because they lost. Like that was always the big hitters in Haikyuu episodes. Like you've got the whatever you would call the seniors or whatever, third years in Haikyuu. When they lose a fucking game, they're like, God damn it! That
was my last first game of the season.
Right.
This is my last spring tourney.
Right. And so those moments really hit really fucking hard. And I think that idea of like, I might not get another chance is what made a lot of this show also great, is because Tomaki, whatever the fuck his name was, Toru.
Oh, you talking about Tokumaru?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very much on that wavelength, and like giving yourself there's this whole like sub arc where it's basically like I'm beating myself. That is extremely important in sports, and I think they just did this really, really well. I think the art was absolutely incredible. I think it was one of the better looking shows of the year. I think the designs were incredible from like a people perspective, and like everything looked great and realistic. I think the rain effects were incredible. The water reflections and like effects were incredible.
CGI was extremely tastefully done. Even if it was a cost-saving measure, I think it's let them do the character animations incredibly well to give a lot of depth and heart to this kind of show like this. And the CGI itself was actually pretty like well above average. Top tier, maybe not, but for a studio like Troika, whatever the fuck, sure. You did an absolute bang up job on all fronts, and for this to be homegrown, fuck man, like you're in this, like you're good. Like I don't know, I love to see more shows like this. Like take a slice of life angle of like a niche sport or hobby, and really send the focus onto the characters, onto the individuals involved in this hobby and their mentalities. You have a banger every time. You have a banger every single time.
I mean, I really think this is like an idea that is played with a lot, like Hikaru no Go or Hajime no Ippo, like stuff like that. I would like to see a fishing anime or something just like absolutely bonkers
give
weird.
Me a big bass fishing.
You know what
anime,
I mean? They're like
baby.
a big deep sea fishing, or
Oh,
like
fuck, dude.
Deadliest Catch, the anime.
Give me Ice Road Truckers, the anime,
hell
dude.
yeah. And they'd be like, all right, big buddy.
Baka, whatever,
Yeah.
fucking whatever,
Or whatever. Not like I care.
Whatever. You don't even care, dude.
Yeah, I think this is a dark horse for me for the year, honestly. It was so well done, so beautiful, so like impactful in 12 episodes.
It's up there, man.
Of course, I love the Formula series typically. I hate the FIA, but it's very similar to like a FIFA. If any of you guys watch
Yeah, I was
football.
getting that energy from you just now. It's like the sport, great. The people in it, fun to watch. The organization, absolute hellhole of just terrible people.
I think a lot of leagues are in the same scenario where like everybody hates the FIA, everybody hates FIFA, and everybody hates the NCAA.
And, good old's got a great script this year.
Yeah, that little fucker.
That piece of shit. But anyway, scoring time. I honestly, I want to give this, man, it is, I have no other reason not to give it a 90 out of 100.
Wow, I love that.
Because I can't genuinely think it's tight. It's 12 eps. It is completely homegrown, so it's a begin, middle, end. There's no lingering bullshit. Any gripes we can think of is a mere contrivance to tell the story they wanted to, was very planned, or it's a nitpick. Like, I found it maybe it was a little odd the way that they could have remedied both of their particular traumas. The way they did it could have been done a long time ago, but you know what? It was beautiful for the way they told it in the story. But me and Ethan were talking off mic. Sometimes you get stuck in that trauma. You get stuck in your rut in your own head, and sometimes it takes someone else to snap you out of it. Someone new, fresh eyes. So there is no reason I can give this anything less or more than a 90 out of 100.
Yeah, we were toffing off screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You said toffing.
We were just toffing it up, dude. This show is the toff of the town.
We were making toffee,
Yeah.
and then also drinking a coffee. And then we were talking about the show.
There's another word in my head that rhymes with coffee.
Watching Drawfee.
That nice.
Thank
dude.
you.
Nice.
So I'm gonna go ahead and give this listening to Lawfee. That's an artist.
Okay, you gotta help me with that one, but cool.
She's like a weird, like almost scat jazz chick.
Say less, dude. Let's
she's
go.
odd, but
Skibbity Bop a score this
she
show,
just did
dude.
a Tiny Desk concert. I'm gonna give this one a 92. I do not know what I gave Freyrin, but this feels
Weirdly up there.
similar for some reason.
It's
not fantasy based, but
No.
there's so much heart to this show. I just like when I said that to you earlier, like I don't know how to expound upon that in any deeper like sentiment or like more eloquently, but I'm trying to explain this to y'all. It is such a deep show in a weird way.
It doesn't overstay its welcome, but the beats that it hits so good. And it never, you know what a part of it too is?
Look, if you can make me cry in 12 episodes, you've done a great job.
You've done a great fucking job. And it doesn't linger on its success. I think a lot of shows I've seen in the past that have these big emotional beats, these big character moments, they really, they give it a big ado. Like they did this big, huge ado. And there's a lot of pomp and circumstance leading up to and thereafter, like they're almost patting themselves in the back, or they're really revving it up to that big moment. Both Freyrin and Overtake both have multiple of these big, beautiful moments, but they don't linger on it, much like life doesn't linger on those big things either. Like real good core, profound human interaction can happen in the smallest places or between unlikely people or in just everyday situations. And they do a really good job of making those things feel as natural as possible. And they hit all the more. It feels like you can see this happening.
Right.
In not even necessarily in your life, but you can see this happening, in it just around. I don't know. It's again, when you the closer you're trying to get to the core of it, you're right. The words escape. So the only thing I can say is go fucking watch this show.
Give it a chance.
It's a real late entry to the 2023 catalog, started in October. It's honestly such a sublime surprise to get something like this at the very tail end of the year. And I really hope that in some small way that we can kind of get the word out. This show, if you've not seen it, is quite a lovely experience.
It deserves a watch.
It deserves nothing less than your full undivided attention. I'm talking to you. You know who I'm talking to. Get the fuck off your phone and go watch a show. I know it's on right now because you did turn it on. We told you to, but you're scrolling through X and you're scrolling through. I'm sorry. Angry Ricky might be back in 2024.
Yeah, are you okay, man?
Angry Ricky might be back in 2024.
I just got scared. Ooh.
Well, yeah, you know what? Thank you for coming to one of the nearly last class of 2023. I think we'll think of maybe like 1 or 2 left to do. We may take one of the weeks off for the holidays just to enjoy time with the fams. But we might cook up like a year in review or something like that. Some kind of fun, like maybe, you know what I'd like to maybe do while we're on there? What we should talk about if we all the times we said Dark Horse this past year, were we right? Like the Dark Horse review.
Interesting.
Yeah. And maybe we take a little time, maybe, and then we can take a week off. I don't know.
What's funny about Dark Horses is if you start in January, it's like, of course they're not going to persist.
We don't know. Like maybe they were big hits and we called it early.
Yeah.
We just have to go back into our year preview or the previews of each season and see
That's a good point.
We see which ones maybe this could be a dark horse.
We'll see what happens.
You know, we'll come up with some shit. We're just scatting ourselves around, spitballing. But thank you very much for coming to class. If you would like to talk about like maybe actually you went and watched Overtake and you had some thoughts, come to the Discord. We recently had someone new come in, Creamed Poof. Thank you for coming in. He spells it with an O, or she, I don't know. But he spells it with a poof. A little bit of sass on it. But you can join that too. Patreon.com/weebology. $1 and up gets you into the Discord with Cream Poof. All the good fans and the lovely Patreon folk that are in there and past guests as well. And if you want some more content, you're already in a platform, guys. Angry Ricky might be back 2024, but you know what? We're still calm. It's holiday time, baby. I'm a holiday ham. Just go over and down, and you got over 230 some hours of content that you can go ahead and listen to while you're doing nothing on your family couch trying to just get through the holidays if you're someone that
or on your long drive up to wherever you're going or down to wherever you're going.
Yes, we know you got to travel. We know you're on planes, trains, and everything in between. Listen to us there. We'll keep you company.
Trains, planes, and cranes, like everybody else.
And cranes?
Yep.
Holy shit.
Like everybody.
You got to go to the 70th floor to see your family that lives in an apartment. Hi, fam. It's just like...
just swinging you up.
Yeah.
Whoa!
If you want to contact us, if you want to give us like, comments, and subscribes on you do that, or if you just want to, check out a little bit of merch, you're feeling, holiday peckish.
Hit up that website, boys and goys.
Yep. Weebology.com. And I think that is it. I'm going to go edit this and kind of ham up. That's my holiday version of going to get cozy. Just ham up. Yeah. But until I feel a little bit less like festive meats, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this is Weebology.
Deuces.
I do feel like a ham hog.
I'm a cold
You're a cold cut?
Yeah, cold cut.